Hello students, a very good morning. So today after the discussion on photoelectric effect, let's discuss de Broglie concept. Later after these all we will discuss also the application of photoelectric effect. So what is de Broglie concept, where we are using, why we need it? First of all, let's see that. As in our chapter dual nature of radiation we have understood now, means if we have to understand completely the properties or phenomena generated by any radiation, we need both kind of nature, wave and particle. But what is the concept of matter now? Matter is what you know. Matter is simple. We have like solid, liquid, gas and all the systems are made up of some of the elementary particles that are called electron, proton and neutron. So here electron, proton and neutron, their distribution you know by using atomic models. According to that, we have a tiny space that is called nucleus, and electrons are revolving around the nucleus in different circular orbits, and that circular orbits has different energies. So the electrons are revolving in different radius with different velocities, having different energies. So this is our concept. Later we have seen some of the phenomena that was changed the criteria of the theory of these particles. Like here, if you will see matters, that it is constituent is like the particles, because electron, proton and neutron, these are particles. But sometimes they are possessing some of the different phenomena that was difficult to understand primarily. Later, after de Broglie concept, a number of scientists have tried to explain, and they have successfully explained this one. So this where actually this problem arises to understand about the wave concept of matter. Whenever electron is making transition from higher state to lower state, then that time we know we have seen even a light or wave of certain radiations we are seeing there. So it means according to even Bohr concept or Rutherford concept, this thing we have known already, and they have used this concept to just to explain the spectrum of atom. So atoms are also possessing a spectrum. They are giving us a spectrum as like light are producing. So it means that whenever electrons are making transitions from higher to lower orbits, then the energy or the wave we are seeing radiated, and that wave lies in any of the 7 electromagnetic waves. So we are observing, you can say, light, the production of light after the transition of these one. So here problem arises, how can a particle emit waves here? So this problem again removed after the removal of the problem in light. As in light, Einstein has explained successfully the photoelectric equations by using particle concept, and later we have just accepted both the concept of light, wave and particle, and that was called dual nature of radiation. So de Broglie proposed a concept for matter also, like matter particles are possessing you can say wave also. It means that actually according to de Broglie concept, I will say in one word, then according to his concept, every particle is associated with a wave. Simple means whenever particle is in motion, then that time the locus of the motion of particle is called wave. So you know this is the wave. How wave is generated, like in the generation of wave we have understood, when particles are oscillating, their energy transfers locus is called wave. So in the same way, where electrons are revolving or moving around the nucleus, then in the movement also they are spinning around its own axis. So due to their spinning continuously, the amplitude of the waves is changing. Then due to the motion of electron, you can see now a wave is also associated with every electron. Means wave is here. In the same way, you can just represent it by the wave. So you can see now here every electron, every proton or neutron, whenever is it in motion, then that time a wave will be always associated with it. So simple concept here, wave arise whenever motion concept is arise. and if particle is at rest, then that time it is just like the particle. So dual nature of matter is this one. We have wave plus particle, both kind of nature. So according to de Broglie concept, this wave that is generated due to the motion of the particle, its wavelength can be calculated. By the way, as he has used Planck's idea again here. According to Planck's idea, the energy radiated, suppose any electron that is making transition from higher to lower state, then he has told us between two transitions the energy radiated, that is energy of any electromagnetic wave. And according to Planck idea, energy of electromagnetic wave we can represent in terms of energy of photons, and each photon has energy h nu. Similarly, according to Einstein's mass energy equivalence, means mass can be converted into electron. Sorry, not electron exactly, energy. So mass energy equivalence means whenever one particle is in motion, that is moving with some velocity v, then it's according to mass energy equivalence mv square, that will be equal to energy. Means that is forming a energy. This concept you know, that is very well known concept. As in oscillation and wave we have seen, whenever particles were oscillating, so their energy was transferring, means their particles oscillation mass were transferred into energy. So this is energy mass equivalence. Now we can just equate these two equations. So after equating you can write mv square, this is equal to h nu. So this is now mv square and h. If nu you know, this is the frequency, you can represent it in terms of wavelength. So wavelength is given by v by lambda. If you are confused, you will see also in place of this one is equal to mc square, then c by lambda you can use. So generally I have used only general condition. Means if particle has velocity equal to c or not, this you can represent it by this one. Now this one v is cancelled out, and finally lambda can be calculated. This will be equal to h upon mv. Means whenever a particle of mass m that is moving with some velocity v, then that time it will just constitute a wave that will have wavelength lambda is equal to h upon mv. This is the de Broglie concept, and this is de Broglie, called de Broglie wavelength. So its name is now de Broglie wavelength. So I think this is now clear. Now next one, after this we can also represent the de Broglie wavelength in number of turns. So after de Broglie hypothesis, let's see how many ways we can represent it. So first one, we have lambda is equal to h upon mv. Now as we know, mv, this is equal to momentum. So if any particle that has momentum p, then the wavelength can, the de Broglie wavelength can be written as h upon p. So in terms of momentum we can also calculate it. Now the third one, we know that the kinetic energy of the particle is associated or related with the momentum by the equation p square by 2m. So from here we can calculate the value of p. This will be root of 2mk. Now we can write in place of p, then our equation of de Broglie wavelength will be converted in terms of kinetic energy. So this is also a relationship between wavelength and kinetic energy. So number of turns, whatever you have the information, you can, according to that information you can calculate de Broglie wavelength. Number of ways to calculate it. The fourth one method is here. As we know in photoelectric constraint, kinetic energy is equal to AV0. If suppose V0 is the potential developed by the this particle, and E is electronic charge or charge of the particle, then that time in place of K we can write this one, then lambda will become h upon under root 2 m E into V. This is also equation. So whenever potential difference is applied across any atom, then that time we can adopt that formula. Whenever we have information about the kinetic energy, we can adopt this one. Whenever information about momentum, then we can adopt this one. Momentum information about mass and velocity, we can adopt that. So number of ways are here given. Now let's see the graph plotted for these all bracket terms that we have just written, or the number of ways in which we have represented the de Broglie equation. One by one I will just tell you. Only bracket term I am leaving here. So for first one, let's see, if suppose m that is the obviously mass of the particle, this will be constant quantity and h is already constant. So lambda is proportional, direct inversely proportional to v here. This greater will be the speed of the particle, less will be the wavelength. So here if you will just plot the graph between velocity and wavelength, then this graph is, as it is now, inversely proportional. So it will be decreasing graph. Means if suppose v is equal to 0 you have, then lambda will have maximum, ultimately it will become 0. So this kind of graph you will obtain from for this one case. Now if you will see for the second one, if h is already constant, that is Planck constant, so lambda is directly proportional to 1 upon p. So if momentum, you will see momentum lambda graph, then this is just like the same graph. As you know, momentum is related to velocity, so this will be the same graph for this one also. Now third one, if you will see the graph for third one, here the graph between wavelength and kinetic energy, if you will see this one, so lambda is inversely proportional to root k, or we can write lambda square is proportional to 1 by k. So as this is the graph, you can see this is like y square is equal to kx type graph we will have, that is parabolic graph. So here this parabolic graph is telling us if this is lambda, this is now k. So with increase in k, it will decrease parabolically. So this is the graph between lambda and k now. The last one, if you will plot the graph between lambda and v0, so that graph as its variation, you will see the lambda is inversely proportional to 1 upon root v0. Yeah? So from here it means that if you will again solve, the lambda square is inversely proportional to v0. So this is just like the same graph, because there also the parabolic decrement we will obtain. So these are all the graph between different terms that we will see for the de Broglie wavelengths. Now after the discussion on de Broglie concept, I think this is now clear. Let's discuss just one more concept here of the chapter, that is Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So let's see now what is Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So this principle here, one word, uncertainty. You know, whenever any of the quantity is not certain, we don't know 100% about that, we are not sure 100%, then that time we are called, this body is uncertain, this quantity is uncertain. So Heisenberg is telling us there are some pair of quantities whose measurement is not certain whenever we are measuring them simultaneously. Like some of the pairs, the first pair that he has told about, that was displacement or position, you can say, position and velocity, or you, in another word you can also write momentum. Now let's see what is the Heisenberg concept or statement or principle. This principle states that it is uncertain to measure the position of the particle accurately if we are measuring the momentum of the particle accurately at any point simultaneously. So simple, I think this is now clear. Or a number of actually ways to just say it. There will be uncertainty in the measurement of position and momentum if we will measure them simultaneously. So it means that if in between these two quantities, means velocity or momentum, or position means position and momentum, if I will suppose to take that one, because this is measure of motion. Position is what? Whenever our particle is at rest. So it means that if we have to measure the motion as well as particle whenever it is in at any position, then that time obviously there will be some uncertainty. But as Newton's equation of motion was telling us what? We can measure position as well as the momentum of the particle, velocity of the particle at any particular instant. If equation of motion like you will see S is equal to ut plus half at square, or if you will see suppose v square is equal to u square plus 2s, means here it is saying that at a particular time you can measure the velocity as well as position. But now Heisenberg principle is telling us this is not possible exactly. There will be some uncertainty, there will be error whenever we will measure such kind of terms together. So mathematically it is written as the position, uncertainty in position we are written as delta x, and uncertainty in momentum is written as this one. This is nearly equal to h upon 4 pi, or exactly you can also write. Okay. So here this means delta x and delta p, if you will calculate and if you will see their uncertainty, then there will be this value of uncertainty between them. So simple, I think this is now clear. If one of the quantity is measured accurately at any point, suppose for this one I am taking one example, any of the particle is motion and that particle is moving with some velocity v. Suppose at this point we want to calculate its velocity, then if we are calculating the velocity at this point, then up to calculating velocity, this particle as this is continuously traveling, this will travel within that time. Means we have measured its velocity correctly, but at the same time if we are going to work for the position, then its position has changed. Slight change in position will occur. So we have measured this position at that time, not this position, because our body was traveling. So for continuous motion it is very uncertain that we can just measure accurately the two quantities. Means as you will see the position, this is defining whenever a particle is at rest, and motion whenever a particle is in motion. So it means that in a general way, if I will say what is the definition of Heisenberg uncertainty principle, it is we cannot just study the moment, you can say motion and rest at the single time simultaneously. Simple. Means if we are just studying the particle at rest, and that time we can only study accurately particle at rest. If we are studying particle in motion, then we can accurately study only particle in motion. We cannot study both of the things at the single time simultaneously. We cannot study this. So this is the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. This is very important principle because from here a new theory, probability theory has started, because we are from here we have started to talk about the probable value, most accurate value, most probable value. So the probability, statistics, these things has started from his principle, and we have started to even develop one of the physics, that was statistical physics. So Heisenberg principle is very basic for that physics. So I think this principle is now clear to you. So if it is now clear, then let's now discuss the next topic here in our chapter, that is the last topic now. This is photocell. Now let's see what is photocell. And this is actually, photocell is what? This is the practical application of photoelectric effect. So as photoelectric effect we have discussed, then let's see its practical application. Then photocell, if we have to make, then first of all we are making some of the vacuum chamber. So this is a vacuum chamber that we have made now, and in this vacuum chamber what we are doing, we are keeping a plate, any of the cathode plate here. So this is our cathode plate now, and one of the anode plate we are keeping here. Now this is the anode plate, and source supply we are using to these plates, means we are connecting these plates to a supply or to a battery, and and this is we have to keep our cathode at negative potential and anode at positive potential. Then we can use a variable resistance also. So this is the simple, you can say, application of photo electric effect by using this kind of photo cell. Here we are using a source, and that source is just incident light on it. After incidence of light, our electrons are emitting, that are collected by anode. Our circuit is completed, and we can calculate or measure or just take the current that is passing through this circuit. So this is our whole of the practical application of photoelectric effect, and this is now construction of photocell. In the construction of photocell, first of all we are using a vacuum chamber. Why we are using actually vacuum chamber? So that our whole of the light can be utilized at our cathodes. That's why we are using this one. No of the light can be just lost in any other form of it, because light can be converted in another form. If in open we will write, we will keep actually our instrument. So that's why we are just covering it in vacuum chamber. That time when light is incident on this cathode, then this cathode, first of all, you know, this is made up of the photometal, means the metal that we have to use for the photoelectric emission, and that should have low work function, so that more in very less amount of energy electrons can be, or intensity electrons can be emitted. Next one, after fixing a suitable frequency and intensity of radiation, here electrons started to emit. That all electrons are starting to just accumulate at anode, and we are giving the anode by to a proper positive potential, so that electrons can be attracted here, and the current can be flows through here, and that current we can use in our daily life. So this is, I think, this principle and working of photocell is now clear to you. Now next one, after this one, let's see the applications of photocell, where we are using photocells. So the first application of photocell is, we are using this type of cells in automatic doors. So like in automatic doors, how can we use it? At one side of the door we are just keeping this photocell. Suppose this is now our photocell, and we are using a source of light that is providing continuous light on this photocell. So whenever light will incident of suitable frequency and intensity on this cathode, then that time continuous current we will observe here. So whenever the current is producing in this photocell, this door is now closed, but when some person will enter at this one, this light will break, and due to breaking of the light, current in the photocell, that will be decreased, or that can be zero. So due to decrement in current, the door will be automatically open. So this is the automatic process that we are using in automatic doors by using photocells. Second application of photocell in our daily life, that is, we are using in automatic lights. At dawn times, we are using this kind of situation whenever lights can be automatically on. So reason again is the same. Whenever the light will incident, then that time continuous current we will obtain, and whenever continuous current will be produced, no of the light will be on by this photocell. But whenever the sun started to dawn, and that time light started to be faded or decreased, and current started to decrease here, and with decrement in current, lights will be automatically on. So this is the second application of photocells we are using in automatic lights. Third application is we are using in burglar alarms. So in alarm systems, in fire alarms also we are using. Like in any factory, if we have used photocells there. So whenever fires or any kind of thermal situations will appear, then that thermal energy will be transferred to the photocell. In this situation, our photocell is inactive condition, means alarm will be inactive up to no current is flowing through our photocell. But whenever thermal energy will be provided to the photocell, then that time current will started to flow, and whenever current will start to flow, alarm will be automatically turned on. So in fire alarms, in burglar alarms, we are using these devices. The next one application of photocell is to measure the intensity of stars or temperature of stars. So like if we have to measure temperature of sun, then that time the intensity or the light that is coming from the sun, we can incident on this one, and after the incidence of light, if we will measure the value of current through this, then that value of current can provide us the value of intensity, because according to our particle concept, intensity is directly proportional to number of electrons ejected. So if number of electrons ejected can be calculated by our experiments, then that time we can calculate the intensity or temperature of the distant stars easily by this device. Next one application is that is we are using this device in counter circuits. Like if we have number of products and we have to count that all products, then what we are doing, we are again using, suppose this is the way where our articles are coming, then that time in one side we have kept the photocell, in one time we have just used a light rays. So until this light is incident on this photocell, then continuous current will be here, and that time the counter that is attached with this one, that will read 0. But whenever some of the article will come here, that will block this light, and due to the blockage of light, current in photocell again this will be decreased, and whenever it will decrease once, then that time counter will read 1. Then again once the second article will come, again light will reduce, and that time for the secondary one it will just counts 2. So in the same way, in factory we are using to count the number of products that we have made through this photocells. So these are our practical applications that we are using in our daily life. Along with this one, number of other applications we have, like in mine industries we are using to detect whether there is some of the mines or some of the minerals or not, because the ultimately presence of minerals, or suppose whenever we are just digging our earth, and that time somewhere some heat can be produced. So that heat whenever will be transferred to this one, and that time this current will be changed. Simple, what we have to do in photocell, whenever the current that is producing in photocell, we have to keep it constant. Means if we have to keep frequency, intensity, photometal and anode potential, these 4 terms if we will keep constant, then a constant current will be produced here. And whenever this constant current will change due to any external body, then we can measure or we can detect that external bodies easily by changing this one. So this is the automatic process that we are using in our life to keep us safe, to detect the minerals in and also in a number of devices. So along with this topic, our chapter is now ended, and in this chapter we have discussed up to now the dual nature of radiation and matter. Then we have started with the adoption of particle nature of light as well as wave nature of light by this one, and if we will again use Heisenberg uncertainty to this dual nature, then we can also say if any of the instrument that is used to measure the particle nature or used to measure the phenomena or detect the phenomena that we can explain by using particle nature, then that instrument or device cannot be used for wave nature. Similarly, we cannot even use those devices that we are using to just detect the phenomena by wave nature. We cannot use this particle nature. So uncertainty principle just predict us this one also. Reason again, as I told you, wave nature is related to the motion of the radiation. Particle nature is related to the static condition of the radiation. So static and dynamic, these two conditions are providing two natures of radiation as well as two natures of matter. So continuously these two natures we can study. Next one, after this we have discussed Einstein's photoelectric equations, and according to that concept we have completely used Planck's idea to explain photoelectric equations and the laws of photoelectric emissions, and for his explanation, you know that he got Nobel Prize for that. Later, after his explanation, as we have adopted both nature, then we had started to work for matter. Like for material particles, electron, proton, neutrons, we have started to understand if our material particle is in motion, then it can also constitute a wave, and that wave is known as de Broglie wave, and its wavelength is known as de Broglie wavelength. So this matter wave has a certain category, and this one we have discussed even in class 11th also. Next one after this as Heisenberg and photocells. These whole concepts we have studied. So student, with this all explanation of the topics and the chapter, let's end our class here.